Thank you for joining us today here on the Word of Encouragement. And if you actually tuned in on Christmas Eve, that's great. I'm honored by your watching this little podcast. And today we would like to look at one of the Christmas passages that we don't think about, and that is in the Gospel of John. Now we have the actual narrative only in two of the Gospels. That's the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke. And we find different and important aspects of the Christmas story. But we get the big picture in John chapter 1. In fact, you have in the beginning of the chapter, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so we have here a description of Jesus Christ being the Creator God. We find that in verse 3, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. He was life, the creator of life. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And so the Word, we know, is Christ from chapter 1, verse 14. And the Word was made flesh. There's the incarnation, and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So as we think about the babe in the manger, we need to realize that the Word, and that's clearly Jesus Christ, the communication of God to mankind, he was with God and he was God. He was in the beginning of all things with God, and he was the Creator. That is our Savior. I often emphasize that because we have a tendency to bring him down a little bit because we can so relate with Christ, being the incarnate Son of God, becoming one of us. And it's just glorious as you read the Gospels to just see his compassion and his love for us. But we do need to understand that we should have full reverence for him as God. And that is also an emphasis that's needed because we need to realize what he is able to do. He is stated in verse 14 as becoming flesh, becoming one of us, but he still has spiritual glory, and he is full of grace and truth. Jesus said, I'm come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. When Christ works, he does it in a full and complete way. His salvation is perfect. His work on the cross was complete. When he created the heavens and earth, it was perfect. When he created mankind, it was perfect. Everything is perfect. And so he is the embodiment of the fullness of God, and therefore the fullness of grace and truth. And that's very encouraging. Jesus Christ is able to give us all the strength and empowerment we need. That's what grace is, the free gift of the power and working of God in our lives that we do not deserve so that we can accomplish his will. And he is full of that, and he's full of truth so that we can understand everything we need to know in this life. But I'd like to end this with this word of encouragement. He's given it to us to live a life so that we can be a channel of grace. Ephesians 4 talks about the fact that when we endeavor to communicate with one another, we should edify one another, and having our speech empowered with grace. We need to be the channel that God can use to give grace, the channel in which truth is given. For Christ is in us, the hope of glory. The Spirit of God empowers us to do that. So here on this Christmas Eve and tomorrow on Christmas, why don't you revel in the fact that Jesus has the grace you need, the truth you need, and why don't you share that grace and truth as a gift through these days?